Hello everyone, I'm happy to be here once again. My name is Ambassador Joe, the Boardroom expert. Please, if you haven't subscribed to this channel, kindly do so on YouTube. Follow me on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. In fact, follow me everywhere I go to, you'll be sure that you didn't make the wrong decision, that you made the right decision. Thank you very much. So yeah, I'll just dive straight in. In the last video I talked about politically exposed individuals on the board. That video was so interesting. Please look for the link around the screen. I'm sure you'll find it somewhere so that you can actually watch it and get the flow from that video to this present one. So today I'll be talking about something that I find something that I think remains at the core of every boardroom composition. Certain companies wake up from the blues or from the reds. They just kind of wake up and they're like, okay, we need to set up a board. The next thing that happens is, do you know somebody that knows somebody that knows somebody? Those questions are, in fact, it happens all the time. Almost 100% of the time, that's how board positions are actually filled. It's about contacts, connections, things like that. That's basically how it happens. Even when you want to do a recruitment, you still need to ask somebody who knows somebody that can refer somebody, things like that. So that's how it happens. But to put a structure around this particular process, the first rule is that you must, as a company or as a board chairman, you must institute what I call the Board Development and Nomination Committee. That's the committee that should, in all cases, handle that particular recruitment process and all of that. And of course, that committee is so useful to any board because one of the things that our committee actually does, number one, is it's in charge of the board succession planning. Number two, the board recruitment. And number three, the board member recommendations. Anyways, the board members' recommendations and the board recruitment, it's almost one and the same thing. But you must be able to have that committee in place so that the responsibility for checking out on everything that happens, especially as it relates to the board member activities, what are they coming on board to do, who is evaluating them, who is monitoring them, who is actually determining their roles, their responsibilities, who is checking up on how far they've gone, who is, all that whole logistics. That committee is responsible for ensuring that everything actually works according to plan. Imagine you have a boardroom, for example, you have board members, there's no monitoring. They are not reporting on anything. They only attend meetings. They don't even check up on whether their resolutions are being followed by the management of the company, things like that. So when you have that kind of a system, you cannot exactly tell who is doing what, when the person is doing it, and how the person is doing it, who is reporting back to the board. You should have board members you should have a system in place which this particular committee guarantees that has a feedback mechanism. So that if, for example, a board member is to work with maybe the MD on certain issues, after he has done carried that particular assignment, who feeds back the company? How can we monitor? How can we check what has been done? How can we also check not just the quantity, but the quality of decisions that have been made, by the board members interfacing with the management and carrying out certain responsibilities in the interest of the shareholders of the company and, of course, the company itself. So that's very key. That's extremely key. You must have that particular board in place. And also don't forget, this particular board development and nomination committee is the voice. It remains the voice of governance. It's the committee that would indicate, clarify, and pass across every information that has to do with the governance, the corporate structure, and the corporate governance, in fact, the corporate governance structure of that particular company. If you do not have this committee in place, trust me, you are doing more harm than good to your company. Before you start even thinking about several other things, I feel that this is the first thing that must go ahead so that the right decisions are actually made on who comes in as a board member. Because it's not a place where people should come and just sit down, attend meetings, then they relax, they have fun, have lunch, then they check out, they get paid, they go home, things like that. What are they really doing? In fact, I was talking to somebody, one of my mentors, and he said something. He said there are even certain individuals that provide boardroom services, consulting services for boardrooms as their only source of livelihood. That's all that they do. They've gathered so much experience, from the corporate world, and they begin to deploy that particular information in the interest of several boardrooms. So you can imagine where you now have a system where this particular committee is not in existence. You might not be able to reach as far as you ought to reach to be able to get people on board. Or if you have one person just recruiting for you, a committee of one, which is not really a committee in the first place anyways, you have that kind of a system. You might find out that you have brought in people to the board, for example, who just have the same mindset like the person who actually recruited them. So those are things that you can actually do away with when you have a proper structure and a proper system in place. So it's very important, it's very key. I want to advise all companies out there, if you haven't set up this particular committee to be able to work in the interest of the organization and of course the shareholders of the company, then you need to have a rethink. You need to have another strategy session to be able to double down on the things that are really important, and this is one of it. This particular committee is a very important committee to the proper functioning of any board system, any corporate system, any corporate governance system. It's entirely important. Imagine you run a company, there are no governance policies, the practices are not known. Ethically speaking, everybody's coming to the table with their own ethics. That's really not nice. To be able to drive the ethical consideration of the company, what you want a company to be known for, you need to have this kind of system in place. Put this committee together. They are your eyes, they are your ears, they are everything for the company. They are supposed to work in the interest of the company to ensure that company actually rises and all that. I'm not saying that some level of politics doesn't necessarily go into some of these decisions that might even be made by this particular committee, but the fact remains that it's a whole lot better to have this committee in place and enjoy the benefit of bouncing off divergent views, across all the interests and all the parties, involved. That's a whole lot better than to just have a scenario whereby somebody just walks in and says, okay, let's recruit that person. No, this person, not this person. Let's get that person on board. No, you don't actually need that. You need a process that all the nominations actually come. Then you have a team that looks at each nomination to be able to make an informed decision at the end of the day. How be it political, how be it business-wise, whatever it is really, you should be able to bounce off that particular idea within this committee. So that's why this committee is actually so important. It's so important, extremely important. Then of course, to have a committee like this, they normally say this word, birds of the same feather flock together. In this particular scenario, I want to disagree a bit, and the reason is simple. When you want to set up this kind of committee, you don't put similarities all around. You have to be able to bring in, if for example, maybe you have an accounting professional, a legal professional, you have different divergent, somebody who understands business process. You have all these divergent persons on this team, a HR person. You have all these people come together to sit on this particular committee. Trust me, when they are recruiting, they'll be looking for divergent things. But if you just set up this kind of a committee and say, oh, it's only lawyers that know it, and you fill the entire place with lawyers, you might not necessarily get the best from that particular committee. But it's also important that a lawyer is on board on this particular committee. Very, very important, because you must be looking at a mixed skill set, divergent ethnic groups, people from different ethnicities, different skills, different sector expertise, different gender, things like that. You must be able to at least adopt global standards, best practices across the world to ensure that you're actually getting it right from the very, very start. So it's very key, it's very important. Board evaluation, very, very important. In fact, I did a content, I've done several contents that have to do with evaluating a board. And one of the things that I said then was that there are two ways for you to carry out board evaluation. One of them has to do with bringing in external consultants to evaluate the performance of the board members. Then the second thing I said also, the second view that I put forward had to do with the company itself generating its own medium to be able to evaluate itself. In fact, this particular committee, it can play that particular role of evaluating the board. So that's very key. That's very important. It's one of the ways through which boardrooms can actually be better in the interest of investors, in the interest of shareholders, in the interest of equity, people who have equities in the company, things like that. Yeah, and why it's very key for you to hear this is because somebody out there somewhere close to you might require this particular information to do better. So why not share this content? Drop a comment if there are certain things that I've said that you don't agree with, and you feel that I need to explain so much more about. Please do let me know. I'll be willing. I'm excited. I'm happy to drop my thoughts much further. As we ride along the wave to 50 videos, please join us. Please subscribe. Talk to your friends about what we do, and I'm very sure that it will be of an immense contribution to their own knowledge base and, of course, to the workings within their companies. Till I come your way next time, I remain Ambassador Joe. See you in the next video.